Welcome to the day 5 of 25 days, 25 skills. I'm glad that of the one fifth, we've covered the one fifth part of the series, and we're on the day 5 where we've covered a lot to do with teachers training and upskilling that's required for teachers to remain relevant, to remain contemporary, and as effective in what they're doing. Today, we are touching something that's very sensitive, something that's not really spoken about a lot, but is very interesting to talk about because we all have experiences to contribute to this conversation. And life's come a full circle, at least for me and Preeti, where from being students, we've been teachers and now also parents, right? And that's what today's topic is the parent teacher dynamic. Is it really about collaboration? Is it about coming together? Are there power tussles between these two roles that we are playing? While the both stakeholders are equally invested in the growth of the child, the fact remains that not often are they on the same page. And that brings in a little certain degree of discord and certain degree of confusion in a child's life, right? Because me and Preeti, as part of the pre-discussion, we were just saying that, anytime a parent and a teacher is meeting beyond the set environment, right? Beyond a parent-teacher meeting, result day or a school function, then it's a cause of alarm, right? A teacher is also always saying, I'll call your parents and I'm going to complain about XYZ. And, same is what the narrative is at home, that if you don't behave a certain way, I'm going to complain to your teacher. So what is this role dynamic? And, are these two in competition? Are these two in collaboration? Are these two complementary? Are certain things that we're going to talk about today. But before we begin, I'll invite Preeti in to start sharing her initial thoughts on the subject per se, and then point by point, we'll go and unpack this entire theme and subject. Over to you, Preeti.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Garima. It's been incredibly rewarding to be here with you in these talks, right? So, now to talk about this particular topic, the parent teacher dynamics. I'm sure every teacher feels they are giving their all in the classroom, pouring into their students. And sometimes the relationship with the parent feels less like a partnership and more like a tug of war, right?
Mm,
And we
mm,
have parents who become our best allies. We also have parents who become our adversaries. There could be blame games, there could be communication gaps, maybe unmet expectations. And a lot of times, as teachers, we end up having to defend our decisions. And if you talk to parents, they would say the same thing as well, right? A lot of times, while it feels like the parents and teachers are on two sides of the fence, the bridge that brings us together is the focus of our lives, the children, the love for children, right?
mm,
What does it look like to tread that path, to keep that bridge alive, to
mm,
come onto that bridge? What is it like for us as teachers? What is it like to do that as parents? And how does this dynamic impact a child eventually? Right, so that is
mm,
what we're going to be unpacking today. um, it's definitely not an easy line. Most of the time we think of teachers as people who teach, but it's not just teaching. There is so much more that comes into the role of a teacher. It's not enough if you know your subject, you also need to know children. It's not enough if you know your children and how to deal with children, you also need to know how to deal with the parents. Right? And a lot of
mm,
times parents are coming to teachers for parenting advice. Even if the teacher could be as young as 20, 22, doesn't have a child of their own, has probably not even married, right? But the moment you're in the position of a teacher, you're expected to play the role of a subject matter expert, a parenting coach, a teacher, a client relationship manager in a certain sense. There is so much that goes into that role, right? And we want to focus
absolutely.
specifically onto this particular aspect of the teacher's role in dealing with parents today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so. That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. So today, let's start with you, Garima. What are
Mm, mm,
some of the common issues or challenges that a teacher could face with respect to aligning with the parents? Or
mm.
let's say, what is the significance of aligning with parents for the child?
Right, right. Thank you so much for that, Preeti. Honestly, I'll start with my own personal experience, both as a teacher and as a
Mm,
parent, right? Because one keeps shif- shifting those roles over a period of time, depending on in what situation you are. You spoke about the challenges or the situations that may arise, which may not be really expected for a teacher. Like you rightly said, number one, you're not just expected to be a subject matter expert, you're expected to be a child psychology, a parenting expert, an emotional anchor, somebody who knows it all, right? Um,
mm,
and while one is as a teacher may be very aware of the role which is expected to play, having the professional expertise to be able to do it could be two completely different aspects,
mm,
right? While I may know that yes, this is something that may come my way, and yeah, I can spin it and I can like say five sweet sentences and get out of that situation. A lot of times it begins by acknowledging, do I even have um, enough expertise to be able to deal with this question, right? This especially comes into play when the conversation shifts from just the subject matter conversation to a more behavioral or emotional concerns or in individual evolution and personal nuances perspective, right? For example, I'll just give you an example of a mother who came to me in one of these meetings, and she'd recently become a single parent, right? This family was going through separation of the parents, and while there were certain changes in the child's behavior, in a class of 50, 60, especially in adult um, crowd, you may or may not even notice these small nuances because students are smart enough to camouflage that side of their life, which they do not want to share in a public space and as large a crowd as that. But the but somehow the mother felt comfortable enough to raise that concern and talk about the fact that this is what we are going through as a family, and do you think this is impacting his behavior in the class? And I was like taken by surprise, right? Now, this is a very family therapy or a very counseling oriented sort of a conversation. And also because one didn't have context. And I know that we are having this conversation in a space where there are five more parents waiting to meet me. Neither is the time right, nor is the setting right, nor is the context built up, but you are expected to just respond to that, um, you know, googly that's been thrown your way in that sudden situation. That's one example. Then there are times when there are conversations of stream switching or career switching that suddenly comes up in a conversation that my child was pursuing XYZ kind of a profession and suddenly they've shifted to this. And do you think that there are what are career prospects like? And we're sitting in first year and we still have 2.5 more years to go. And I just feel that at times a lot of such challenging questions are thrown your way as a teacher that require that merit more than requirement. They merit a longer discussion, that merit a more focused approach. And while you may even be equipped to respond to that, is that the right time? Is that the right setting? Is that the right environment in which you may want to address or not address? And if you wish to deflect that question to say that, okay, let's stick to what we are here today to talk about, and maybe we can just pick this up later. These are very tricky pivots that one may need to do. Now, this is what I'm sharing with you as a teacher, right? Because I teach at a higher grade. So these are more evolved sort of questions. as a parent on the other side, when I'm sitting by God's grace, I was telling my daughter this time that your PTMs are very non-entertaining because you're a good student and there isn't much that your teachers want to talk about you. And it's like my daughter's like, no, it's a great ego boost for me. They say nice things to me, and that just motivates me to go on and do good things, which is great. But sitting as a parent, Preeti, I was taken by complete surprise the range of topics that are discussed in parents teacher meeting, from child's eating habits to screen habits to social conduct to homework to this to that. Like, yeah, how is a teacher responsible for the amount of screen time that you have at home, or the way your child is socially conducting himself or herself in a particular class? But just because, going back to our first discussion, the meatiest part of their day is because it's going in school. It's just expected that a teacher must have and will have answers to anything and everything related to a child's personality. And that's where it and at times it's very visible on a teacher's face that, bro, this is not my concern, or this doesn't fall in my periphery of response. Okay, talk to me about my subject and just get out of the room, especially these middle school, because there's so much of pressure on the teacher. So I'm just saying that these are some challenges that one is faced with. Even if you're equipped to answer those, is this the right setting in which you may want to answer? And at times, some points are also brought up to you for the heck of it. Okay, let's throw this and let's challenge this person and let's see where this person is. Whereas it needs to be a more collaborative effort. One last thing that I want to, and I would love for you to share your thoughts if you've seen the same or if your experience has been different. I've always seen these meetings to be labeled as problem solving, sort of like solution circles, as if there is some problem already existing. Like a parent meeting a teacher means there is some problem that we are meeting. So to solve something, this person is not doing right. And the child is made like the center of everything. That, okay, this is what you're doing right, this is what you're not doing right. Did you listen to ma'am? She's asking you to focus more. Did you listen to mama, papa? They're asking you to be a little more disciplined. My point is that, and it's very easy also because I remember you saying this, um, hierarchy, age, shape, size, smaller human being, right? And here is a group of 4, 5 people who are sitting and nodding their heads and saying that everything that I'm doing is wrong. Right? I also feel that the energy around these interactions need to change, which means that apart from parents teacher meetings, apart from result and progress discussions, could we create more structured spaces for more constructive and open discussion between parents and teachers? Yes, there are schools that have introduced open days. There are schools that have introduced, spaces where parents can interact more freely with teachers. But there is need to do more. There is what I really also feel. Yeah, that's the long answer to your short question to begin with.
I think you very beautifully summarized quite a few things. What I kept noticing as you spoke about the different scenarios that a teacher could encounter is that there are many kinds of parents. You can kind of broadly categorize them, based on your
Hmm.
discussion. And generally, if
Hmm.
you look at the parent-teacher interactions as such, you have the kind
Hmm.
of parent who would um, who has these high standards for the
Hmm.
child, and it's your job to ensure the child delivers it. Your job as a teacher to deliver it. That's what you get paid for, right? You come back
Hmm.
here and tell me, are you teaching your child at home? Are you getting your child to practice at home? That's what I pay you for. Why are you talking to me about all this? Right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that is one kind of parent, right? So they have a high standard and sometimes even unrealistic expectations of a teacher, right? And then there are parents who are like, okay, so he's like that, yeah, I get. It's almost like they are. It doesn't matter, if this is happening in the school, it's up to you to deliver it. You are responsible to get the child to behave well, etc., etc. And then there are parents who would, like you said, point fingers. See what your teacher is saying. Is this what you're going to do? Is this how mera badnaam karoge tum school mein? So the child is expected to behave and conform in certain ways so that the parents' names are glorified. you know, right? The duty of the child
Absolutely.
is to listen to the parents and listen to the children, right? And then there are parents who will go all out, no matter what, to defend the child.
Absolutely.
बच्चे तो झूठ ही नहीं बोल सकते. आप ही तो कुछ, you would have done something. What did you tell him? How did you correct him? How can you talk to my son like that? How can you talk to my daughter like that? No, if this
Yeah.
is how you're running schools, I don't know how you became a teacher. Like the extent of nastiness that parents can
Mm,
bring
mm,
can really surprise you. For as small things as the child was jumping and playing with their friends, and they fell or got hurt.
yeah.
And I'm like, then what are you doing? As a teacher, you can't
Yeah.
even look at that. You can't stop a child from falling. What are you doing?
Mm,
Right? I'm sure many parents are thinking, can you stop your child from falling at home? Right? So it's coming very much from a space of wanting to put the child at a pedestal, and the
mm,
teacher is always wrong. So one extreme is child is always wrong, the other extreme is teacher is always wrong. And like you said, there is another category that is coming to, okay, what are the problems? This has got to be the problem. How can we both ensure that we blame the child and get. And then there are also parents who would come across as allies, as in
mm,
they try to look at things from your perspective, but they also stand up for the child to say, I think this is what the child could have been thinking or feeling. Maybe this is where the challenge is, but I also get for you, this is where there is a gap. Did I get this? How can we figure this out more, to
mm,
come more from a collaborative space?
mm,
And
mm.
what I think makes that difference is that the ideologies are in alignment with the schools, right? The school policy, the school ideology, the school the basic principles, the foundation on which the teaching methodologies and activities and everything, all the school related decisions are made. If as parents we are in alignment with the school, it becomes much easier to look at this as they're on the same team for the child.
Yeah.
It is not you versus me and the child. It's not me and child versus you, for both teacher and child versus parents, or parent and child versus
Mm,
teacher.
mm,
It is that both parents and teachers are doing this for the child, and the child is also part of the team, right? It's all three uh, elements in the same string. They're not
mm,
separate,
mm,
right? When we
mm,
can create an ecosystem like that, I think it would be a lot easier for parents to digest the things that come up from the school perspective, from the teacher's perspective, and for the teachers to also convey why certain behaviors are standing out, what is the expectation from the school's perspective. That will start to make sense, and it would become easier for us to bridge that gap. And I also love how you said, when parents and teachers end up meeting to just problem solve. For the child it becomes like, oh shit, it's a parents teachers meeting. How can I ensure as much as possible that these two entities in my life never meet? I love the way you put that, right? Why are we putting that kind of pressure on the child where it feels like either or both are villainized for the child?
mm,
Can the school system, the education system, be a ground for play, for self development, for curiosity, for fun? I think that focus somewhere is lost in many conversations, and I think that is where the challenges start to creep in. That is
mm,
where it
mm.
becomes more of a power struggle and a tug of war, and the child is caught in between. Is,
True.
is
True.
it making sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely, it's making sense because you know what I'm realizing, what I'm hearing you say, and I'm resonating with it is it is not about one party winning over the other. It is
Yes.
about all of them coming together and winning and making the child win, right? Because it's in this case, all the focus is like I told you, like the entire focus is to problem solve for this individual. This individual is not the problem, bro.
Yeah.
This individual versus everything else could be a problem that you want to point by point, academically and then extracurricular wise, and then personality wise, and then communication and interaction wise. You want to solve for external problems for this individual, and the two of you need to, like you rightly said, be the allies rather than two parties who are villainized and are in discord all the time. So while I've seen also pretty, what I've realized is that, you know, this whole power struggle and power tussle, at least all the progressive urban schools definitely have these PRG groups, parent representative, or, you know, groups and stuff like that. Now, I don't know how it is like, let's talk a little about this energy. I understand the purpose for which these groups were created to begin with. And I have myself experienced being a part of these groups and seeing the kind of energy that goes in, right? While from a school perspective or from a collaboration perspective, the intention for setting this up must be great, right? That there should be an equal voice heard from a parent circle perspective. And because 50 different parents can't stand up, and 50 different parents means a set of 100 individuals can't, like, there needs to be unison in voice, and therefore two people are elected as the representatives and stuff like that. And across the grade, if there are five sections, which means 10 people are going to represent this group of 500, 600 odd people. The challenge is the kind of conversations that I see on these groups as well. If you feel like you're saying, no, the set of parents, that energy travels to these groups also, while they are there for a constructive discussion on policies that should be created in unison, on decisions that should be taken mutually. But it again becomes the power dynamic when you create a body like that. That, oh, we are saying you should not give students ketchup in breakfast, but you're not listening to us, you're still giving them ketchup. I'm telling you, these are big issues. Right?
Okay.
Look at your expression there. Yeah, and you know, I've also seen ego tussles come in there because this parent in the world outside could be a big CEO, could be a great professional, could be somebody who's leading X kind of an organization. Very often, I also see it, and this could be Delhi specific, this could be region specific. I don't know. I'm just saying that when you are a parent, what I've observed is keeping that, that crown of being so much more in the world outside is generally not done. You carry that weight with you in this parents teacher meeting, in this parents teacher discussion, and you want to throw that weight around. And between parents also, you know, like a society meeting where you want to be the better one, the more aware one, the more vocal one, the more suave one. There is this unsaid sort of a competition to look a certain way, to talk a certain way, to make your point a certain way. And in that energy, the whole theme of collaboration is lost. And for this, at least early on, in my experience as a parent, there were a lot of induction meetings done, a lot of acclimatization meetings done, a lot of icebreaker sessions done with the school management and the parents. The point that I'm getting to is is there viability of the whole parenting coaching that we want to give out to parents per se to be a better parent with the child? Is there are there is there a space for creating a hand holding session or a workshop session, a team building session of sorts between parents and teachers? Is uh, is that as a concept Does that exist right now? Because I know informally there are efforts that are made. But formally, do you think that this is a space that requires intervention, especially in today's day and age when we are most often than not single parent, single child parent, single child households, right? There are not too many siblings. The attention to parenting has changed. From a time where there were four kids, you invested all your mind and heart in the initial first two, and the remaining two are have the
Yeah,
responsibility of the
going on.
elder siblings and stuff like that, right? To a point where all your energies, like you were rightly saying, you attach your personal success to the child's success and failures.
Mm.
We mutually agree that's not right because this is a completely different life and you should give the room and space for this child to be a person of his or her own. But increasingly, my question is because the theme is training and upskilling. And today we're talking about a completely different stakeholder. You and I know how ready parents are to be upskilled, right? It takes a lot of courage to say, I don't know how to do this and I'm ready to learn. As it is, that is limited. But can we go from this formal open channel to bring parents on board and do something in that space? Is that something that's happening in the industry, or is there a conversation around that? What are your thoughts on it? Um,
It is becoming an increasingly accepted. I would still say it's still in the very nascent stages, early stages, where schools are partnering with parenting coaches and child care experts and child psychologists to support the teachers and parents as well
mhm,
in the
mhm,
context of understanding children, raising children, addressing behavioral issues, study related issues, academic, non academic, whatever.
mhm,
It's still not as common as it could be. And
mhm,
one more thing is that many times there are schools, when it comes to special days like orientation day or parents teachers day, they invite a speaker and wo 45 minutes ka talk de diya and it's over.
mhm,
Right now, there are also schools who have in-house counselors, in-house life skills educators, in-house people, personnel who are perhaps adept to support parents in these particular cases. But still, this is in the context of putting out a fire rather than preventive bridging of the gap,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And I think it would be beautiful, I think the intention of what is the group you said? Some PGA, PRA, parent relationship,
PRG, PRG.
right? Yeah.
Parents,
So the
PRG, Parents Representative Group.
PRG. Okay. So I know there are schools that do have parent bodies, student body, and school bodies, right? So they have all of these, and then representatives from each of those groups also come together to have these meetings and discussions and to sort things. So while there are attempts that are made, I think a specific attempt to educate parents about the ideologies and methodologies of the school would make a huge difference, right?
Hmm.
Why is it that many times parents come and fight with us as teachers to say, how could you talk like this to my child? No, why would you push my child? Why did you not give this two extra marks? Whatever it is, right? So these are fights that do come up, right? So why does that come up is because the parents don't understand some of the reasons certain decisions are made from the school side, from the teacher side. And now making an attempt to break the ice, to educate the parents as well as understand the parents' perspective, I think that you can create a more seamless experience for the child and all parties involved. Right?
Hmm.
Can
Hmm.
we function as an organization when you're taking the admission of a child? You're not just taking admission of the child, you're admitting the family
But
in a
isn't
certain
that
sense.
commonplace? Isn't that something that happens across the board?
How
It
does it
doesn't.
happen? It is at the beginning of the year that
Yeah.
there is
Hmm.
1 hour talk, 2 hour talks. Another thing is for many schools, their problem is, parents don't come. They're
Turn up only.
dedicated. Yeah, the dedicated parent teacher meeting itself, they have to send so many reminders and calls, and still there are so
Mm.
many people who would not show up. Now, if they say there is a talk like this is an value add. So for them, it is if I can, if I wake up early in the morning, I will go. No, no, this week I. So it becomes like a, if you
No,
want to, if you have nothing better to do, and they then. But the intention of arranging this is for you. Like, how do we convey that? Can we make that
also the
as
younger
part?
the child will also lay emphasis. If something's happening in my school, you have to turn up. The older the child is like, the child becomes cool by then, na? A cool child does not want parents around in the school. And you're like, you can skip it. There's nothing important happening here. It's a very tricky terrain, and like you're saying, a lot of this is still done to put off the fire or resolve an issue, and not
Yes.
as a plus one
Mm.
to create an environment.
Now there are schools though who have, I've heard, I don't ask me the names of the schools, but I have heard some elite schools supposedly where parents and teachers come together. This is again an alternative school. I can't remember the name exactly, where the
Mm,
parents and teachers, educators come together to discuss the circumstance of the school itself. Simple
mhm,
things like infrastructure में कुछ problems है, teachers
mm,
need their weekly offs, or their holidays, or their salaries sometimes that we call to play. They, we've got courts that we want to create, amenities for
mm,
the children. All of that requires money and
mm,
a whole lot of other kinds of resources, right? So we've
mm,
had, I've heard of these schools where the school administration, during these regular meetings that they have, which has nothing to do with children, but more
mm,
about how the school is being run, how
mm,
the
mm,
curriculum is being set. Where there are some schools, some children. Okay, there are some children who have not yet caught up to this. So this is how we're planning to bridge it. As in, they talk about everything. The running of
mm,
the classes, the running of the school, the infrastructure, the money related issues, the resources necessary, expansion, all of that.
mm,
There it becomes like the parents are part of the trust, so to say, right? They aren't, it's more like a
yeah,
voluntary thing, but
mm,
that becomes a culture. Now for the child, when my parents meet, I'm no more terrified, okay, are they going to meet at all? That's point number one. Second, because parents and teachers are always in touch,
mm.
or at least
It's not
more
an
in touch,
exception.
right? That for the child also, somewhere they, that they're more pressed to toe the line, in terms of discipline, submitting their assignments and doing what needs to be done. That doesn't need to be a, I will complain to your mother, I will complain to your father. That need not happen. Like, उनको पता है कि mama, papa and my teacher do speak.
Yeah. Mm, mm-hmm.
At least to some extent that does help.
Yeah, yeah. And what I'm realizing increasingly as we are unpacking this subject and talking to each other and almost coming to the close of this discussion is that, there's no right spice that just brings this recipe alive. It to each his own. And the idea is that the intention needs to be of collaboration rather than contest and competition, because ultimately you need to make the child win. Because what I've also experienced, um, Preeti, is that, say for example, in the particular school that I'm referring to, where my daughter goes, all of these there is room for these discussions. There is room for this collaboration. I remember how zestful we were as parents early on in this journey. And increasingly, as we know that our child is doing academically well, she's pretty happy with the environment, teachers, and everything. We've also retracted a little. We've just let the school be. Also, because we just feel that the amount of emails that come to us, the amount of technology that's come in, the amount of supervision they are inviting us to come in and do. But the point is that, do I also have the intent and the time to really do it? Because if they're doing a decent job of what they're doing, then I'd rather just step away and be quiet. Nah? What I'm realizing is that I do not need to let it become an ego concern. I do not need to get paranoid about this whole thing. There will be good days, there will be bad days, there will be great teachers who will have a great equation with your child particularly, and there will be teachers with whom it will be a lukewarm relationship. Not everything is always going to be bright and shiny and hunky dory, right? The idea is to not panic and just let this space flow and navigate. And also, as a teacher, instead of coming from a place of trying to please the parent and be right in their eyes all the time, or trying to put down the student and position yourself as the one who's always right. I think all we need is a more open environment that encourages collaboration at the end of the day. Is is where I'll leave it for now. And from a structured reforms perspective, definitely, like you said, not too much, not too less. There needs to be more structured spaces for parent teacher interaction. We need to take away that heaviness, that load, that baggage that these two meet only to make my life miserable. These two can date beyond that is also something that, if as an idea sits right in a child's head, then that pressure completely diffuses. And I think all of that is going to come only when both the parties are cognizant and mindful of why they exist in each other's lives to really begin with, which is primarily to let the child win, to make it a space fertile for this child's growth and learning, right?
Yes. Now, if you actually look at it, if you're looking at what kinds of interactions, keeping the child in the center, there is the
Mm-hmm.
parent and school wala alignment
Mm-hmm.
and relationship, and the parent and teacher wala alignment and relationship, right? So these are two different things and at different levels, and it needs to happen. At the school, in fact, for parents, in fact, I would say, do spend time to understand the school before you put your child in there. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just how far it is from home. It's not just what is the academic outcome, or their grades and performance, those percentages. These are things that we usually look at, that most parents look at to determine whether this is the best school for their child, or CBSE, ICSE, what curriculum they use, right? the there is this particular research study, where they had students from two different schools. One is two different economic backgrounds, right? So
Mm-hmm.
children from low income backgrounds go to a certain kind of school, and children from high income backgrounds go to certain kinds of schools. And in the same area, though, it seemed like the children in the high income group seemed to have better results.
Mm-hmm.
Why was that? And when they went in to study that, the assumption, of course, is maybe they have better resources available, maybe they have better
Mm-hmm. Tuitions.
circumstances available. There are a whole lot of other things, right? So what they did was they pulled out students from the low income group and put them in the high income schools, and high income schools and put them in the low income group. And what was visible was that it did not matter which school. What
Mm-hmm.
mattered was the amount of human interaction that
Mm-hmm.
the children received that determined their performance. It was not the
Okay.
resources, it was not the tools, it was not the environment, it was not AC tha, light tha, ye tha, both, none of that. It was the human interaction and human attention in
Mm-hmm.
both the sets that
Mm-hmm.
performed well.
So are we saying teacher student ratio and
Correct, exactly, right?
uh,
And
extra
teacher
focus?
student ratio, and see, the teacher student ratio also talks about the pressure for the teacher, na? And how many
Mm-hmm.
students do I handle? See, we also need to remember our teachers' working condition is our
Mm-hmm.
children's learning conditions,
True. True.
right? If our teachers are well taken care, it means they are able to create the environment where our children are well taken care.
True.
Can we come at it from that perspective? So how do we do that? How do we explain this to parents, and
Mm,
even for parents to, what can teachers do in their capacity to build a positive relationship with parents?
mm,
Perhaps it is,
mm,
yes, we've got to give them feedback, we've got to keep them informed of, what are the problems and challenges that you're dealing with, but maybe not come at it as, like you said, putting down the child, or okay, your child is forever talking, and he was rude over there, and the child is going to fail the spelling test. Well, that's a whole lot at once, right? And it is instinctive for parents to want to justify and push back. So maybe as teachers, we also can learn how to speak, how to connect,
right.
how can we create that space for the child and for the
Mm,
parent,
mm,
and draw boundaries. In your in one of the examples, I loved how you said, matlab give to family therapy ka question hai, why are you bringing it up in the school? Right? How can you draw boundaries? I understand, I hear you. I'm afraid I can't help you here. Maybe you can talk to the school counselor, or maybe you can talk, so that sort of learning to set those boundaries. So these are all skills as well that as parents, sorry, as teachers, we perhaps need to look at, that
mm.
would eventually bring it into a partnership rather than a power struggle with the parents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What I'm hearing you say also, Preeti, here is a lot of mutual respect, having the intention right, having the courage to draw boundaries. And I think that's true for all the three parties involved. And leading by example is also something that I'm hearing, right? In a less pronounced way, because the more I respect the teacher as a parent, I see my child respecting the teacher. If I trash and bring the teacher down, and same with the parent, because this is a very complex dynamic as well. There is love, there is fear, there is idealizing, there is respect and looking up. So what there are too many emotions invested in both the across the stakeholder group. But long story short, I think at the end of the day, if the intention is to serve each other and the intention is to make the child win, then some tips that we've shared in terms of parents turning up a certain way and teachers managing the whole situation a certain way should go a long way in helping uh, mend the bridges in this relationship. And I'm so glad we just didn't realize how time flew. And we've come to the end of day 5 of this series. And just like that, I'm sure we're going to reach day 25 as well. We are receiving a lot of love from people who are tuning in and listening. There is a lot of value that's being created here. And like always, we are open to themes and topics and suggestions and comments that people may have to share on what else would they want us to cover in the days to come. Thank you so much for your time today, Preeti, and a great weekend ahead. We're going to see
Thank you.
everyone here again on Monday next week.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.